Sometime before 147 BBY, the Sith Lord Darth Tenebris used his vast intellect to contemplate the future of the Sith. He foresaw the emergence of a pivotal figure, Palpatine, who would signal the end of many established orders and govern eternally. However, blinded by his own ambitions, he mistakenly believed this destiny was meant for himself. Chapter 1. Early Life on Naboo. Sheev Palpatine began life on the serene planet of Naboo. The House of Palpatine stood among Naboo's wealthiest and most influential families, deeply connected to the planet's political elite. Born as the eldest of several siblings, Sheev grew up in a huge Palpatine family estate. His father, Kosinga Palpatine, was a domineering and overbearing figure who valued prestige and legacy above all else. Throughout his youth, Sheev attended some of the galaxy's most prestigious academies. Sheev's keen mind grasped complex concepts far beyond his years, particularly in Naboo's political system. This understanding led to a deep dissatisfaction with his father. He saw Kosinga as a man of limited vision, who was simply content with a small provincial role rather than striving for true power. This complacency infuriated Sheev, who believed House Palpatine could and should play a far greater role in Naboo's politics and beyond. Palpatine grew up with an overwhelming sense of superiority, believing he could get away with anything, even murder. No matter the trouble he found himself in, his father, Kosinga Palpatine, always used his wealth and influence to bail him out. This constant indulgence fostered a deep belief in his own superiority, even over those closest to him, including his family. Chapter 2. Darth Plagueis the Wise. Hego Damask was the head of the powerful Damask Holdings, one of the galaxy's most powerful and influential financiers and political lobbyists. However, beneath this public persona lay Darth Plagueis, a Sith Lord who sought to reshape the galaxy according to the Sith's ancient vision. The year was 65 BBY. Naboo was holding new monarchical elections. Kosinga Palpatine, a staunch isolationist, supported the conservative royal candidate opposing Bon Topolo, who wanted to open Naboo to galactic trade. Unlike Kosinga's, Sheev envisioned Naboo embracing a larger role in galactic affairs, where its resources and influence could secure greater power and influence. This ideological clash deepened his disillusionment with his father, whom he saw as incapable of advancing House Palpatine's position or appreciating Naboo's potential on the galactic stage. Acting on his own ambitions and defying his father, Sheev supported Topolo's campaign by leaking confidential information to him. Sheev's actions did not go unnoticed by Plagueis. Through his corporate empire, he promised to support Topolo's campaign in exchange for exclusive transport rights to the plasma. Plagueis, intrigued by the audacity of Sheev's defiance against his own father, arranged to meet him. Upon their first meeting, unable to sense Palpatine in the Force, Plagueis was intrigued by the mystery surrounding him. Henceforth, the relationship between the two deepened as Plagueis positioned himself as a mentor, exploiting Palpatine's hatred for his domineering father. He framed himself as a kindred spirit, someone who understood the boy's struggles and offered liberation from them. The rift between father and son widened when Kosinga discovered Sheev's close friendship with Damask, as he was well aware that Damask was a big supporter of Topolo. Alarmed by the potential threat Damask posed and enraged by Sheev's defiance, Kosinga planned to exile his 17-year-old son. This led to a climactic confrontation aboard the family yacht, during which Kosinga and Sheev each revealed their hatred for each other, Kosinga even admitting he had wanted to kill him since infancy. The revelation unleashed years of pent-up hatred and rage within Sheev. Drawing on the dark side of the Force, Sheev slaughtered his entire family and their guards in a fit of unrestrained fury. "Tell me what happened," asked Plagueis. Palpatine raised his clawed hands. "I executed them with ease, and with the power of my mind. I became a storm, a weapon strong enough to warp bulkheads and hurl bodies across cabin spaces. I was death itself." After this confession, Plagueis went on to erase all evidence of the murders, allowing Palpatine to sever ties with his past. This defining act convinced Plagueis that Palpatine was worthy of joining the Sith Order. Shortly afterward, Plagueis formally initiated him as his apprentice, bestowing the name Darth Sidious, which was a reflection of Palpatine's cunning, ambition, and insidious nature. Topolo went on to ascend the throne of Naboo as planned, and the Plasma Reserve's control was sold to the Trade Federation, a powerful company that controlled basically all trade in the galaxy. Chapter 3. Becoming a Sith Lord. Once Palpatine pledged himself as Plagueis' apprentice, the real work began. Training under a Sith Lord was no mere academic exercise. It was designed to test and hone the apprentice's body, mind, and soul. Plagueis introduced Palpatine to Sith philosophy. He painted the Jedi as naive and ineffective, protectors of a broken and corrupt republic. Dark Sidious's training under Darth Plagueis focused on developing his force abilities, combat skills, and political acumen. Plagueis pushed himself to the brink with deprivation of food, water, and sleep, using anger, hate, and desperation as tools to transform him into a true Sith, ensuring that his apprentice would either emerge stronger or perish, for in the Sith tradition, only the strongest survived. He introduced Palpatine to the Sith Grand Plan, a way for them to get to dominate the galaxy. What exactly was the plan about? Well, it sought to take control of the Republic and destroy the Jedi that sought to protect it. They sought to achieve this by infiltrating the Republic's highest spheres and then slowly accumulating the power towards a single individual. Henceforth, they'd work together to advance this plan, but at this moment, a lot had yet to be done. As a first step, Palpatine began his political career. He started as an ambassador in the Apprentice Legislator program, where he slowly worked his way up. Despite his ambition and intelligence, Palpatine faced setbacks early in his political career as he tried to gain a name for himself by applying for numerous elections and losing a lot of these. However, his humble way of dealing with these losses did gain him sympathizers within the Naboo government. This resulted in him gaining the ambassador role under the then reigning Senator Kim of Naboo. Chapter 4. Darth Maul. During his apprenticeship under Darth Plagueis, Sidious went to Dathomir to learn more about the dark side of the Force. There, he was entrusted with an infant Zabrak, gifted to him by the child's Night Sister mother. The child would come to be known as Darth Maul. Known for their resilience and high tolerance for pain, Zabraks were a natural fit for Sith training, though nothing could have prepared young Maul for the relentless brutality of Sidious's training methods. From an early age, Sidious shaped Maul's worldview and trained him to become a Sith assassin. After conducting a final test with Maul where he had to survive in a desolate jungle with his bare hands, Sidious pronounced him ready. At that moment, Maul was no longer a mere apprentice. He had earned the title of Sith Lord and was henceforth known as Darth Maul. The nomination of Maul, the Sith Lord, was kept from Plagueis as it would have made his master suspicious. All Plagueis knew Maul for was a tool for the Sith, an assassin that blindly would follow through on their bidding whenever needed. Chapter 5. Palpatine, Senator of Naboo. Around 52 BBY, Palpatine capitalized on the growing dissatisfaction in Naboo over King Tavalo's trade deals with the Trade Federation, which benefited the Federation at the expense of the people. While publicly supporting Tavalo, Palpatine subtly criticized the king, positioning himself as a reformer who understood the common people's grievances. With his popularity rising, Palpatine, under the guidance of his master Plagueis, orchestrated the assassination of Naboo's senator, the Dark Him, to further destabilize the political landscape. The dramatic public murder allowed Palpatine to step in as a reluctant Senate candidate, gaining support from both Tavalo's faction and the disillusioned citizens of Naboo. Their plan worked. Palpatine won the senator race with ease and was now in a more powerful position, which allowed him to gain access to the Senate in Coruscant. In the Senate on Coruscant, he portrayed himself as a senator from the small provincial world he came from. His modest demeanor disarmed potential rivals, and he avoided the ambitious committees and advisory boards that could have made him a target of scrutiny, maintaining a good image among all senators. During his free time, he focused on writing and delivering thoughtful speeches and essays. These writings became popular among students of political and military science, earning him a reputation as a principled thinker. These actions gained him a lot of allies within the Republic spheres, and he quickly started growing in popularity, just like on Naboo. In his early sessions in the Galactic Senate, Palpatine quickly dispelled initial doubts about his effectiveness and political skills as a newly elected senator. His authoritative yet balanced and reserved demeanor earned him widespread approval among his fellow senators. His ability to objectively analyze both sides of a conflict and propose practical solutions quickly made him one of the most prominent and influential senators. Over time, Palpatine garnered the support of many politicians and key business leaders, solidifying his growing network of allies. Chapter 6. Setting the Stage. The Sith's plan was working. Palpatine was becoming an influential figure on Coruscant. Plagueis, as Ego Damask, was a supporter with the financial backing behind it. However, Palpatine's growing popularity did call political rivals into action, as some didn't approve of Ego Damask's influence on the Senate through Palpatine. Damask, due to this, got targeted for assassination, and they didn't like his influence on Palpatine. The assassination attempt failed, but left Plagueis severely scarred, requiring him to use a breathing device henceforth. The failed assassination led Plagueis to give the reins of advancing the Sith Grand Plan entirely to Palpatine in order to focus more on his experimentations with the midichlorians. He started living extremely secluded, rarely ever appearing publicly, being more obsessed than ever to achieve immortality. Meanwhile, Palpatine's influence in the Republic was growing as he gained more and more high-profile allies within the Republic. One such ally would be none other than Senator Finis Valorum, who became a close friend of his during their time on Coruscant. When Valorum later went on to become the Supreme Chancellor, Palpatine was a trusted ally and advisor of Valorum. This position was perfect for Palpatine, as he had direct access to the strongest figure in the galaxy and could now lay the foundations to further destabilize the Republic structure. One major suggestion he was able to get Valorum to pass was a bill for the taxation of the free trade routes, knowing fully well that the Trade Federation would oppose it fully. Seeing the tension raised by the proposed bill, a meeting on Iriatu was held to hear out the opposing voices of the Trade Federation. During the summit, security droids, secretly arranged by Sidious, killed 6 of the 7 Trade Federation Directorate members, leaving the Trade Federation's leadership completely desolated. The Senate proceeded to pass the taxation laws. Killing the Trade Federation leaders had 2 reasons. Firstly, was for the Senate to pass the taxation laws, but more importantly, he was able to place Newt Gunray as the leader of the Trade Federation. Gunray's rise within the Federation had been carefully engineered by Sidious himself. By following Sidious's every command, Gunray eventually was able to secure this extremely powerful position. His ascension to the role of Viceroy was entirely due to Sidious's influence and would have been impossible without it. Thus, he was in Sidious's debt and was easily manipulated henceforth. Next order of things, Palpatine arranged for several billion credits to be funneled through the extremely shady Bank of Argyle into the accounts of House Valorum. The scandal critically undermined Valorum's already fragile grip on power further, leaving him with very few friends left in the Republic's government. Palpatine's and Plagueis' plan for him to become the highest leader of the Republic was all but set. The Trade Federation had Gunray in place at the Trade Federation that followed their every command. Palpatine was extremely popular in Coruscant, and Chancellor Valorum's power was slipping. One final puzzle piece was left to be solved. Palpatine and Plagueis needed more influence on Naboo's throne, as the current king started opposing them. Plagueis took it upon himself to ensure the king's death. This series of events ultimately led to the coronation of a very young Padme Naberi, later known as Queen Amidala, as the monarch of Naboo. A child on the throne, what an easy pawn to be manipulated into the bidding of the Sith. With everything in place now, Sidious went on to convince Gunray to blockade Naboo. The reasoning given to Gunray, to show you how manipulative Palpatine truly was that it was the home planet of Senator Palpatine who was the main culprit behind getting these trade route taxations. The blockade should be a demonstration of power for the Trade Federation. Gunray did as asked, and the events to follow should be quite familiar to all viewers. Chapter 7. The Rise of Chancellor Palpatine. The Trade Federation swiftly fortified its presence in the Naboo system, amassing a fleet of battleships to enforce a strict blockade. They sealed off the planet, choking its once thriving trade. Incoming ships were informed that the blockade was in response to the Republic's illegal trade taxes. The Sith's plan for the Naboo blockade was to increase Palpatine's chances at the Chancellorship by undermining Valorum even more, showing how he couldn't take decisive action and wasn't fit as a leader. These should accumulate in the Senate to take the Chancellorship away from Valorum and vote him down. For the next month, the Senate engaged in fierce debate, but failed to take decisive action. The Senate's inaction made Valorum seem weak, a perception Palpatine encouraged by advising Queen Amidala to stay patient and let the Senate come to a conclusion before taking any action of her own. However, Amidala proved less compliant than Palpatine anticipated. Frustrated by the Senate's inaction, she contacted Valorum directly. Valorum resolved to call a special session of the Senate to address the blockade. To strengthen his position, he decided to send Jedi ambassadors Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi to Naboo, hoping their presence would intimidate the Trade Federation and demonstrate his resolve. To further escalate the crisis, Sidious and Plagueis decided an invasion was necessary. When Chancellor Valorum secretly sent Jedi ambassadors Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi to negotiate with the Trade Federation, Sidious feigned outrage and ordered Gunray to invade Naboo and eliminate the Jedi. Despite efforts to kill them, the Jedi survived, rescued Queen Amidala, and escaped to Coruscant. After escaping Naboo, Amidala's damaged ship landed on Tatooine for repairs. Sidious dispatched Darth Maul to capture Amidala and eliminate the Jedi in order to force her to sign the treaty to make the invasion of Naboo illegal. By making the invasion legal, it would have shown just how powerless the Republic Senate and their Chancellor Valorum really was. Although Maul tracked them down, he failed to accomplish his mission. Palpatine, initially planning to use Naboo's occupation to gradually remove Chancellor Valorum, saw an opportunity when Amidala unexpectedly arrived on Coruscant. Recognizing her urgency, Palpatine manipulated her into calling for a vote of no confidence in Valorum, bypassing a slower legal process. Amidala, frustrated with Valorum's ineffectiveness and the Trade Federation's stalling, trusted Palpatine's advice and prioritized Naboo's situation. The vote swiftly gained support, leading to Valorum's downfall and the collapse of his government. As Chancellor Valorum's fall became imminent, the Senate divided between three candidates for his replacement. Palpatine, having built alliances through months of lobbying and with the help of his mentor Plagueis, who manipulated the process by assassinating key senators, emerged as a compromise candidate. In the election, Palpatine's rivals failed to secure enough votes as recent killings of opposing senators also tilted the balance in his favor. The Senate, eager to avoid deadlock, rallied behind Palpatine. With overwhelming support, he was elected Chancellor, vowing to restore the Republic's former glory and unite its fractured people, a promise that obviously masked his true ambitions. Chapter 8. The Death of Darth Plagueis. Before his election as Chancellor, Palpatine met Jedi Master Dooku, a Jedi he was introduced to by Plagueis. As they shared a lot of common viewpoints, a friendship had formed between the two over the years. Dooku revealed that Qui-Gon Jinn had brought a boy named Anakin Skywalker to the Jedi Council, believed to be the chosen one. Palpatine informed Plagueis of this, who became alarmed, fearing that Anakin's existence might be the Force's retaliation against his experimentations with the Force. To thwart Anakin's potential threat, Plagueis ordered Palpatine to ensure Qui-Gon's death, hoping this would prevent Anakin's training. Palpatine did as asked and sent Darth Maul to confront Qui-Gon on Naboo. At this point, the outcome of Battle Naboo was irrelevant to him, though. He had set it with the target to undermine Valorum to achieve chancellorship. Even though it did not entirely transpire as he had planned it, he had achieved his target. The last obstacle to his own domination of the galaxy was his master, Darth Plagueis. Plagueis had intended to serve as co-chancellor, effectively controlling Palpatine's decisions. However, Palpatine never had any intention of sharing power. Now that Plagueis was no longer useful, Sidious decided to eliminate him once and for all. On the night of the election, Palpatine and Plagueis attended a performance at the Galactic Opera House, then celebrated at Plagueis' luxurious penthouse on Coruscant. After drinking a lot of wine to celebrate Palpatine's victory, Plagueis fell into a deep sleep. Seizing the opportunity of Plagueis' vulnerability, Palpatine unleashed a surge of Force lightning at his master, disabling Plagueis' respirator mask. While the Dark Lord slowly suffocated, Sidious expressed his gratitude for Plagueis' teachings, but also lashed out at him for manipulating him into murdering his family. As Plagueis died, Palpatine felt a powerful shift in the Force, which he believed marked his ascension as the Sithari, the prophesied Sith leader. He vowed to remain vigilant and never let his guard down, unlike Plagueis, whose fatal mistake had been a moment of unconsciousness. The path was now set for him to be the Dark Lord of the Sith and being the sole controller of his destiny to rule the galaxy. Chapter 9. Chancellor for the Republic, 32 BBY to 24 BBY. After the Battle of Naboo, Palpatine realized he had lost his apprentice Darth Maul on Naboo. However, learning that a young Anakin Skywalker had played a pivotal role in the victory did ease his anger a bit. The Jedi Council had decided to train Anakin as a Jedi, with Obi-Wan Kenobi as his mentor. Although he wasn't sure yet what to make of it, Palpatine promised Anakin during the celebration that his career would be watched with great interest, a promise he intended to keep. But Darth Maul's untimely defeat was a bit of a predicament for Palpatine. To advance his plan of dividing and conquering the Republic, he needed a capable apprentice to execute his biddings. His attention thus fell on his longtime friend, Count Dooku. After Qui-Gon Jinn's death, Dooku left the Jedi Order, disillusioned with their inability to address the Republic's decay. Palpatine, aware of Dooku's resentment toward the Order, as well as having fostered a friendship with him for years, revealed his true identity to him. Dooku, already inclined toward the dark side, joined him rather happily as Darth Tyrannus. Together, they laid the groundwork for the pivotal next step in the Sith's grand plan. During the first four-year term as Chancellor, Palpatine was mainly focused on governing the Republic and having Dooku set the pieces for the Sith into place. He also fostered relationships with different powerful allies, Masameda, his vice chair and Senate Speaker, being one of them. Masameda also becomes one of the few people aware of Palpatine's identity as Sidious. In 28 BBY, Palpatine secured re-election as Chancellor without much opposition. Thus, his second term as Chancellor started without any notable interference. Chapter 10. The Clone Army. Years before Palpatine became Chancellor, Darth Plagueis and him had planned a civil war to weaken the Jedi and the Republic. They devised that there was a necessity to have an army to be created in the name of the Republic. Sidious at first wanted to use the army to fight against the Jedi head-on. However, Plagueis thought it would be better to have the army fight alongside the Jedi. As head of Damask Holdings, the funds to pay for the clone army could be stemmed by Plagueis. However, it would have raised too much suspicion if the wealthy power broker of his alter ego, Higo Damask, was to order a clone army for the Republic. Thus, to keep the Sith's involvement hidden, Plagueis went on to target Master Sifo-Dyas, who had voiced concerns about the Republic's instability. He was an advocate for the Republic needing its own standing army to defeat its systems. Plagueis took advantage of Sifo-Dyas' stance, and after several meetups, Sifo-Dyas agreed to create a clone army in his name, the Damask Holdings providing the necessary funds for the Kaminoans to start their work. Sifo-Dyas left the Order and went on to secretly commission the clone army for the Republic using the funds from Damask Holdings. To ensure the army remained hidden until the time was right, Dooku on Sidious's order killed Sifo-Dyas and took control of the cloning project. He erased Kamino and other key systems from the Jedi archives to ensure the project's secrecy. Dooku's next task was to select a template for the clones. After trials, he chose Jango Fett, a skilled Mandalorian mercenary. The clone army was breeding, ready to be deployed once the last pieces were set in place. By the time the clone army was ready, Palpatine had almost completed his 2 terms as Chancellor, but the stage was now set for the final phase of his plan. Throughout his rise to power, Palpatine and Dooku had sowed chaos across the galaxy. By manipulating the Senate, criminal groups, and financial institutions, they fueled resentment among the Outer and Mid-Rim worlds, who were suffering from corruption and exploitation by the Core worlds. As these systems grew increasingly disillusioned, the call for a split from a republic grew louder. All it required was a spark to ignite the growing tensions. This spark would turn out to be Dooku, the charismatic, well-spoken leader to bring all these dissatisfied worlds together. Chapter 11. The Confederacy of Independent Systems. Under Palpatine's guidance, Count Dooku united several commercial groups, including the Trade Federation, into the Confederacy of Independent Systems in 24 BBY, forming the Separatist movement. These organizations pledged their vast armies to Dooku, giving the CIS the power to challenge the Republic, making it a significant threat to the Senate. Palpatine specifically ordered Dooku's creation of this separatist government near the end of his term as Chancellor. The rise of the separatist threat led the Senate to grant him an indefinite term to manage the separatist crisis, effectively canceling the 24 BBY election. As the separatist crisis escalated, Palpatine staged a PR stunt in 22 BBY, broadcasting a 12-minute address to the galaxy offering peace to Count Dooku. He portrayed himself as the wronged party, willing to negotiate and hold peace talks despite the war's growing inevitability. But of course, he and Dooku had already planned that there would be no response, making the separatists appear unreasonable. To further strengthen his position, Palpatine orchestrated a series of assassinations on Republic senators in 22 BBY, which were blamed on the separatists, fueling the call for a military. When it came time to vote, the Senate had to approve both the Military Creation Act and the voluntary surrender of their legislative powers to Palpatine. The vote was delayed, however, by a failed assassination attempt on Senator Amidala, a vocal opponent of the Military Creation Act. Her opposition to the act made her a target of Palpatine. both to silence her and to appease Newt Gunray, who harbored a personal grudge against her after his defeat at the Battle of Naboo. However, as she escaped back to Naboo, things still turned in Palpatine's favor. Obi-Wan Kenobi had managed to track Jango Fett to Geonosis, where he uncovered the Separatist hidden droid army. As fate would have it, Kenobi was captured by the Geonosians, but he could report back fully about the creation of the droid army. Kenobi's discovery set off a chain of events that Palpatine had long anticipated. The Republic, now facing a confirmed threat of full-scale war, with a droid army prepared for attack, found itself in dire need of a military to defend its interests. Palpatine seized the opportunity to use the Jedi's discovery of the Separatist army as proof of the threat posed by Dooku. During a late-night conference, Palpatine and Mas Amedda met with the Jedi Council and the Loyalist Committee, where it became clear the Senate could not approve the use of the clone army before the Separatist attack. Amedda, likely acting on Palpatine's suggestion, proposed that Palpatine be granted emergency war powers, enabling him to use the army immediately. Jar Jar Binks, representing Amidala during her absence, agreed to propose it in front of the Senate. During the hearing, he unexpectedly proposed the motion for emergency powers, astonishing the Senate. His proposal, seen as Amidala's position, gained